My name is Shannon Cross. I'm 33 years old and I've been a licensed plumber for 11 years. That sentence alone usually surprises people. They look at me, then at my hands, and wait for the punchline that never comes. There isn't one. I own my business. I earned my master certification at 27. I run a crew of 4. Residential commercial emergency calls if it involves water pressure drainage or something leaking. Where it absolutely shouldn't, my phone rings. And it rings a lot. I built everything from nothing. Started at 19 in my uncle's shop, crawling under houses, splitting knuckles on rusted fittings, learning the trade the slow, unforgiving way. I was good at it, still am. That's not arrogance, it's survival. You don't last in this business without being competent. Unfortunately, competence was exactly why my family decided I was theirs. Not emotionally, practically. From the moment I got my license, I became the on-call solution to every water-related inconvenience within a 50-mile radius. At first, it was reasonable. My mother needed help installing a new faucet. My father asked me to look at a toilet that kept running. Normal family stuff. I showed up gladly because that's what you do for people you love. Somewhere along the line, helping turned into expectation. My older sister Hannah once called me at 2 a.m. in January because a pipe burst under her house. I drove 40 minutes through sleet, crawled under her floor with a flashlight cut, and replaced the line while my breath fogged in the cold. That repair would have been an $800 emergency call. She handed me a mug of coffee and said thanks. My older brother Colin had me redo the plumbing in his basement when he converted it into a home bar. Drain lines rerouted. Sink ice maker, full bathroom with a walk-in shower. 4 weekends of work. Commercial value about $8,000. He bought me pizza. Christmas Eve, his wife Kelsey shoved a potato down the garbage disposal, and I spent dinner under their sink while everyone else ate. My parents' house might as well have been my long-term project. Water heater replacement, whole house repiping, bathroom renovations, kitchen upgrades. I even installed a rain shower system my mother saw in a magazine, $400. In parts I paid for myself because she said they couldn't afford it right now. I never complained. I told myself this was balance, that Colin the accountant probably helped them with taxes, that Hannah, the event planner, probably helped organize family gatherings. Later I learned Colin never did their taxes for free. Not once. He billed them like any client. Hannah invoiced consultation time. I was the only one expected to work for nothing. The realization didn't hit all at once. It crept in slowly like a leak behind drywall, unseen until the damage was done. The week before my father's retirement party was when it finally broke through. My mother called on Sunday night, said there was a small leak under the bathroom sink. 20 minutes tops. I drove over Tuesday evening after a 10-hour commercial install, exhausted and sore. The leak wasn't small. Corroded supply lines, frozen shutoff valve, cracked P-trap leaking sewer gas. 2.5 hours later, I finished the repair using parts I paid for because I didn't have the energy to make another stop. As I packed my tools, I heard my mother on the phone confirming catering numbers, seating charts reminding Uncle Dale the time had changed. I walked into the kitchen and asked what time I should arrive Saturday. Her face froze. That half smile, the one that means something's already been decided without you. She said the party was small, immediate family only. I reminded her I was immediate family. She started talking about space, numbers, awkward changes. I stood there in work clothes, hands still dirty, realizing I was being uninvited from my own father's retirement party 4 days after fixing their plumbing for free like I had for 11 years. She said it wasn't personal. I nodded, packed up, walked out. What she didn't know was that 3 months earlier, I'd booked a week-long trip to Costa Rica as my father's gift. Ocean View Resort. All-inclusive. I'd saved for over a year. I sat in my apartment that night staring at the confirmation. And somewhere around midnight it hit me. They didn't forget me. They chose not to include me. There's a difference. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of my couch with my laptop open, the glow of the screen lighting up the living room like a confession booth. The booking confirmation stared back at me bright and indifferent. 7 nights, ocean view room, Playa Azul Beach Club, Costa Rica, fully paid, $2,300. I'd saved for that trip quietly. Every extra job, every weekend call I could have said no to, but didn't. I told myself it was worth it because it wasn't for me. It was for my father. 35 years at the same company, no scandals, no early retirement, just steady, loyal work. I wanted to celebrate that. I wanted to give him something that said I saw him even if he didn't always see me. The plan had been simple. I'd show up early to the party, help set up like always, then wait for the right moment. Maybe when everyone had a drink in hand. I'd pull out the confirmation, make a joke about finally getting him out of the house, and tell him we were leaving together the next month. Just the two of us, father and daughter. I'd even bought a ridiculous tropical shirt to sell the moment. I closed the laptop and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. None of that was happening now. The thing that hurt wasn't the money. I could absorb the loss if I had to. What hurt was the clarity, the sudden, brutal understanding that my presence wasn't assumed. It was optional, disposable. Something to be managed around seating charts and caterers, even after 11 years of showing up without question. My phone buzzed around 9. Ethan. We'd been best friends since 7th grade. He was an electrician, now ran his own crew, and had the same permanently unimpressed tone about most things that I did. He was also the person who showed up with a truck when my ex-boyfriend moved out. No questions asked, just handed me a coffee and said, "Point." I told him everything. There was silence on the line for a few seconds after I finished. Then he said, "Is the reservation locked to your dad's name?" I sat up. "I don't know." Check. I opened the laptop again, scrolled through the confirmation details. Premium room. 2 guests. Name changes allowed up to 48 hours before arrival. $25 administrative fee. I read it out loud. Ethan didn't hesitate. "Then we're going to Costa Rica." I laughed. Not a polite laugh, a real one, the kind that cracks something open in your chest. "You serious?" I asked. "Dead serious," he said. "Your dad can celebrate his retirement by finding out what plumbers actually charge." I stared at the screen, my finger hovering over the keyboard. Changing the reservation felt less like revenge and more like reclaiming something that had already been taken from me. I typed in my name and Ethan's, paid the fee, hit confirm. Done. Saturday morning came fast. My alarm went off at 4. Ethan picked me up at 4:45, both of us running on black coffee and stubborn resolve. As my parents' house filled with pastries and polite smiles, we were 30,000 feet in the air, watching the sunrise break through the clouds. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb. 3 contacts could get through: Ethan, my business partner Spencer, and Mrs. Alvarez, my elderly neighbor, who watched my place when I traveled. My family wasn't on that list. They hadn't been for years. We landed in Costa Rica just after noon. The humidity hit like a warm wall the second we stepped off the plane, but it felt good, honest. The resort shuttle was waiting driver, holding a sign with our names like we mattered. The place was unreal. Palm trees lining every path, an infinity pool bleeding into the Pacific. Our balcony faced nothing but water and sky. I stood there for a full 5 minutes just breathing, realizing no one needed anything from me. Ethan came out holding the all-inclusive menu and grinned. "We're eating shrimp at every meal. It's included." We changed into swimsuits, hit the beach with fruit smoothies that tasted like freedom, and I felt something loosen inside me. Meanwhile, back home, the party had started. And then it went very, very wrong. I didn't know any of that yet. I was lying in a beach chair watching the sun sink toward the horizon, listening to Ethan debate whether sand crabs were actually crabs when my phone stayed mercifully silent. The consequences were unfolding without me. I didn't know anything was wrong back home. That's the part that still surprises people when I tell this story. They expect some moment where I check my phone, feel a twinge of guilt, sense the universe shifting. None of that happened. I was 8,000 miles away, salt drying on my skin, watching the sky turn violent shades of orange and purple as the sun disappeared into the Pacific. While my family gathered in my parents' living room, passing out mimosas and complimenting the catered food, I was learning how to float without thinking. 2 hours into the party, someone used the upstairs bathroom, the same one I'd repaired 4 days earlier. What my mother hadn't mentioned, what she'd conveniently left out, was that she'd been flushing flushable wipes down that toilet for months, a package a week. Every plumber knows those things don't dissolve. They just travel until they can't anymore. Then they wait. According to Tony, the plumber who got the call, the backup wasn't gradual. It was violent. The toilet surged. Water crested the rim and spilled onto the tile, carrying everything with it. Within minutes, it was seeping through the subfloor, dripping into the dining room and ceiling below. Brown-tinted water. No ambiguity. It started raining directly onto the dessert table, onto plates, onto my father's retirement cake. Panic set in fast. My mother's first instinct was to call me. Straight to voicemail. My father tried. Voicemail. Hannah tried from her phone. Colin from his. Even Kelsey. All voicemail. They called again. And again. Nothing. Finally, with sewage literally dripping from the ceiling, they called an actual plumbing company. Saturday. Holiday weekend. Emergency rates. Tony showed up to chaos. He told me later my mother was pacing the porch, demanding to know where her daughter was, asking why I'd sent a stranger. Tony told her he didn't know me and didn't care. Sewage was sewage. Mainline blockage, powered snake, hydrojetting, water damage. The bill for that day alone was $875, and that was just the beginning. The party ended early. Guests made excuses and left. My father spent his retirement celebration running a shop vac. My mother alternated between rage and tears. 35 years of work capped off by raw sewage and a four-figure bill. I was still blissfully unaware. That night, Ethan posted a photo to Instagram. The two of us on the beach, smoothies in hand, sunset blazing behind us. Caption: when you're not invited to the party, you become the party. Costa Rica with my girl. Then he tagged my entire family. Every single one of them. I didn't see it until the next morning. When I finally checked my phone, it looked like it had survived a natural disaster. 23 missed calls, 51 texts, 3 voicemails I didn't need to listen to in order to know they weren't kind. The text told the story in real time. Shannon, where are you? Call me immediately. Then, this is an emergency. Then your father's party is ruined. There's sewage everywhere. Then you're in Costa Rica. You're on vacation while we're dealing with this. And finally, at 2 a.m, I can't believe I raised someone so selfish. My father's message was shorter. Please call home. That one hurt more than the rest. Hannah sent a 5-paragraph essay about abandonment, family duty, and how I destroyed something irreplaceable. She suggested I talk to someone because she was genuinely worried about my mental state. I showed Ethan the messages over breakfast. He read them slowly, took a sip of coffee, and said, "So I guess they found out what a plumber costs." We spent the next 6 days living like people who weren't on call. Snorkeling, fresh seafood, sunsets that didn't ask anything of me. I kept my phone on Do Not Disturb. Whatever fire was burning back home, I wasn't feeding it anymore. The flight home landed Sunday evening. 8 days of sun salt and silence. 8 days without my name being shouted from another room or my phone lighting up with someone else's emergency. I stepped off the plane feeling lighter than I had in years, like my shoulders had finally dropped an inch. That lasted about 45 minutes. I pulled into my apartment complex just after 9 and saw them immediately. All 5 of them, my mother, my father, Hannah, Colin, and Kelsey, they were spread out between their cars like a poorly planned stakeout headlights, off arms-crossed expressions, sharp with purpose. Knowing my family, they'd probably been there for hours. My mother spotted my truck first. She started speed walking toward me. Before I'd even shut off the engine, her face twisted into a blend of fury and relief that would have been funny if it hadn't been aimed at me. "Where have you been?" she demanded. "Why didn't you answer? Do you have any idea what you put us through?" I grabbed my duffel bag and walked past her without a word. "Shannon," she shouted after me, "don't you dare ignore me." I kept walking. My father stepped into my path near the building entrance. His voice had that tone, the one he used when he was disappointed, when he wanted me to feel small without raising his volume. "We need to talk," he said, "about what happened, about the party, about you posting vacation photos while we were dealing with a disaster." I stopped, turned, asked him what disaster he meant. They all started talking at once. The plumbing emergency, the ruined party, the thousands in damage, the calls I ignored, the humiliation, the stress, the neighbors, the guests, the smell. I let them finish. Then I nodded. And I told them the Costa Rica trip was supposed to be his retirement gift. I told them I'd booked it months earlier, that I was going to surprise him at the party, that it was meant to be just the two of us, father and daughter. Silence. My mother's mouth opened, closed. Colin actually took a step back. Even Kelsey looked uncomfortable, her eyes flicking between my parents like she'd just realized she was standing in the wrong room. "But you weren't invited," I said calmly. "So I took Ethan instead." The air felt thick after that, heavy, like the moment before a storm finally breaks. My mother started scrambling for excuses, seating charts, catering numbers, how they didn't think I'd mind, how it wasn't meant to hurt me. I raised my hand. "For 11 years, I said I fixed your plumbing for free. Every leak, every clog, every emergency. 4 days before this party, I was under your sink replacing parts I paid for myself. And then I found out I wasn't invited." Colin stepped forward, puffing his chest the way he always did when he wanted control. "It hadn't worked since we were teenagers." "That doesn't excuse ignoring us when we needed you," he snapped. I asked him when the last time any of them called me for something that wasn't free labor. No one answered. I laid it out right there in the parking lot. From now on, they could call my business line during normal hours. I'd schedule them like any customer. I'd charge them like any customer. Emergency rate was $250 just to show up. Weekends were time and a half. My mother looked like I'd slapped her. "You're really going to charge your own family?" she asked. "I'm done being your unpaid employee," I said. I unlocked my apartment door, turned back, and told them they could stay in the parking lot as long as they wanted, but if anyone knocked on my door, I'd call the police. Then I went inside. Through the window, I watched them argue for another 30 minutes before finally leaving. I took a long shower and went to bed. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. What came next did not arrive all at once. It came in stages, each one worse than the last. And every single one made it clearer they weren't going to stop until I either caved or made them stop. It started quietly. Not with shouting or confrontations, but with phone calls. I wasn't part of conversations happening just out of reach, narratives forming without my consent. My business partner, Spencer, was the first to notice. Spencer had been with me 6 years. Started as an apprentice, worked his way up, earned my trust the hard way. Solid plumber, better human. While I was in Costa Rica, he handled everything flawlessly. Jobs got done, clients were happy, no fires to put out. Then my mother started calling the business line, 9 times. Each call followed the same script. She demanded Spencer personally come to their house as a family favor. She said he worked for her daughter, so he owed the family help. Spencer calmly explained that family favor rates were the same as regular rates and quoted her the numbers. She hung up every time. By the 7th call, Spencer told me he started timing how fast she slammed the phone down. 3 seconds was the record. Tony handled the mainline repair, charged them $3, 200 total emergency visit hydrojetting parts, fair price, market rate. My mother told anyone who would listen that Tony had scammed them, that he and I had coordinated the whole thing, that I'd sabotaged their plumbing out of spite. Word travels fast in the trades. Tony told me over lunch near the supply house. He laughed while he said it, but there was an edge underneath. Accusations like that don't just bounce off. He told me he'd never take another call from their address. That was when I realized this wasn't just emotional anymore. It was reputational. 2 weeks later, Hannah showed up at one of my job sites. I was renovating a bathroom for a longtime client, Deborah, soldering a copper fitting inside the wall cavity. Torch in my hand, headlamp on, focused. Hannah walked through the front door like she owned the place. Deborah stepped into the hallway confused. Hannah breezed past her without acknowledgement and announced we needed to talk. Said this had gone on long enough. Said Mom and Dad were devastated. Said Dad wasn't sleeping, had lost weight, wasn't the same since the party. She said I was tearing the family apart over a party invitation. I told her to leave. She didn't. She said I was being childish, that the silent treatment was immature, that I needed to apologize so we could be a family again. I turned off the torch and set it down carefully. Asked her if she'd apologized to me yet, for not inviting me, for expecting 11 years of free labor, for invoicing strangers while treating me like staff. She said it wasn't the same. I asked how. She couldn't answer. Deborah, arms crossed in the hallway, finally asked Hannah if she worked for me. Hannah said no, she was my sister. Deborah nodded and said, "Then maybe she can come back when I'm not paying by the hour to have someone inside my wall with a welding torch." Hannah left telling me I'd regret this for the rest of my life. Deborah waited until her car pulled away, then said quietly that she hadn't spoken to her own family in nearly a decade and it had been the most peaceful decade of her life. She referred me to 4 friends. Colin tried next. He showed up at my apartment with a pizza and a 6-pack of the fancy root beer we liked as kids. Nostalgia in cardboard form. He said everyone makes mistakes. Maybe they should have invited me, but I was overreacting. I asked him when the last time was that I'd asked him for free accounting work. He said that was different. I opened the door and told him to leave. The rumors started spreading after that. I heard through mutual contacts that my family was telling people I'd stolen money, that I'd sabotaged their plumbing, that I was unstable, on drugs. Ethan heard the addiction rumor from his cousin. Apparently, my mother had been sharing it at her gym. Then I lost a contract. A property management company I'd worked with for 4 years canceled 12 units of standing maintenance. The manager sounded uncomfortable. Said they'd heard some things. That was the moment I understood. This wasn't going to burn out. They were trying to burn me down. Once you realize someone is trying to dismantle your life, you start noticing patterns. The numbers didn't lie. Spencer was tracking bookings, and by mid-August we were down nearly 20%. Cancellations without clear reasons. Going in another direction. Budget changes. Vague discomfort on the phone. The kind that tells you a conversation already happened somewhere else. Spencer said the words I didn't want to say out loud. "This is tortious interference." I reminded him she was my mother. He said those 2 things could both be true. The harassment escalated from whispers to appearances. My father showed up at a residential job site one morning and stood in the driveway with his arms crossed, watching the house like he owned it. He didn't say a word, just waited. The homeowner finally asked who he was. When I said my father, she went stiff and told him to leave or she'd call the police. He left, but the damage lingered. She paid quickly. Didn't chat like usual. My mother convinced a neighbor to let her into my apartment building by claiming she was visiting me for my birthday. My birthday is in March. This was August. She knocked on my door for 45 minutes, cycling between crying and yelling. I didn't open it. Told her I was calling the police. She left when sirens passed, unrelated, but close enough. The breaking point came on a Thursday morning in early September. I was meeting Tyson, a potential commercial client opening a farm-to-table restaurant downtown. Real money, real growth. We were mid-walkthrough talking water pressure and grease interceptor capacity. He was asking smart questions. I could feel the deal forming. Then Colin walked in. He'd followed me, parked somewhere nearby, waited for me to arrive, and decided this was the place to confront me. He didn't acknowledge Tyson, just started talking loudly about family, about abandonment, about how I was destroying Mom and Dad. I told him to leave. He didn't. He got closer, louder, said I needed to stop running and apologize, grabbed my arm and tried to pull me toward the door. I yanked free and told him if he touched me again, I'd put him on the ground. Tyson took a step back. The air changed. He said we should reschedule. He never called. I lost a $15,000 job because my brother couldn't hear the word no. That night, I sat in my apartment surrounded by evidence. Call logs, screenshots, dates, witnesses, statements from Spencer and Deborah. A paper trail long enough to tell a story in court. This wasn't a family dispute anymore. It was a campaign. So I called a lawyer. Her name was Amanda. Civil litigation. Ethan knew her from his divorce and said she didn't bluff. She reviewed everything quietly, then asked what I wanted. I want them to stop, I said. I want my life back. She nodded once. Then we make it expensive for them not to. Amanda didn't rush. That was the first thing I noticed. She didn't gasp, didn't shake her head, didn't give me that sympathetic look people use when they're already deciding how messy something is going to be. She just organized the documents into neat stacks and started building a timeline. Dates, names, patterns. When she finished, she slid the folder back toward me and said, "We start with a cease and desist." The letter went out on a Tuesday. Formal, precise, no emotion. It laid out the harassment, the defamation, the interference with my business, and the consequences if it continued. It told them clearly to stop contacting me, stop showing up at my home and job sites, and stop spreading false statements. Amanda said most people backed off once they saw a law firm letterhead. My family was not most people. By Thursday, my mother had posted on Facebook. Public, tagged, loud. She called me an addict who had abandoned her elderly parents. Said success had gone to my head. Said she feared for my stability. She tagged relatives, church friends, neighbors. She made it a spectacle, like she was daring me to respond. Amanda didn't blink when I showed her. Okay, she said, now we escalate. She filed for a temporary restraining order that afternoon. Harassment, stalking, job site ambushes. The Facebook post, time-stamped after the cease and desist, did a lot of the work for us. The order was granted. Process servers caught all of them. My parents, Hannah, Colin. 2 days later, my father showed up at my apartment anyway. He knocked for 20 minutes. I didn't answer. I called the non-emergency line. Officers came, documented the violation, and told him that if it happened again, he could be arrested. That report mattered. Amanda chose not to file a full defamation lawsuit. She explained why costly, slow, unpredictable. Instead, she sent their attorney a letter outlining everything we had. The losses, the witnesses, the restraining order violation. Then she offered mediation. Their lawyer called back within a week. They wanted to talk. The mediation happened in a neutral office downtown, just a conference room, one mediator, 2 lawyers, all of us. It was the first time I'd been in the same room with them since the parking lot. My parents looked exhausted. Hannah wouldn't meet my eyes. Colin sat rigid, arms crossed. Amanda didn't waste time. She laid out the terms. No contact. 500 feet from my home business and job sites. Written retractions sent to everyone they'd lied to. And reimbursement for documented business losses, $14,000. They pushed back. Said the money was excessive. Said the retractions were humiliating. Said they shouldn't have to admit fault. Amanda calmly explained the alternative. Court, public records, more money, and consequences they couldn't control. The mediator called a break. When we came back, their lawyer said they'd agree. No trial, no speeches, just signatures and a check. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt finished. The retraction letters went out the following week. My mother had to send them herself, to her church group, to the women at her gym, to neighbors, to relatives. Each message stated plainly that her claims that I'd stolen money, sabotaged plumbing, and used drugs were false. No spin, no excuses. The check cleared 2 weeks later. $14,000. I heard through Uncle Dale that my parents had dipped into savings to cover it. He told me quietly that he thought I'd handled things the right way. It was the closest thing to validation I needed. The restraining order didn't expire. At the routine hearing, no one contested it. The judge made it permanent. Walking out of the courthouse, I didn't feel like I'd won anything. I felt lighter, like a door had finally closed. The months after were quiet. The good kind of quiet. No surprise visits, no accusations, no phone calls demanding explanations or labor. I rebuilt slowly. Some clients came back once the truth circulated. The retractions helped. The property management company apologized and reinstated the contract at my standard rates. Deborah referred me to 4 friends. Tony sent overflow jobs my way. Spencer and I hired a new apprentice, Jordan, fresh out of trade school and eager to learn. I heard things eventually. My parents' social circle shrank after the letters. People don't like finding out they've been lied to. Colin's marriage was struggling. Hannah moved out of state for a fresh start. I didn't reach out. I don't feel guilty about that. My life now is mine. I run a business with people I respect. I have friends who don't measure my worth by what I can fix for them. I sleep through the night. And that's more than enough.